All right, welcome back in CBS Sports Radio. It is the Zach Gelb Show on your Saturday morning. And usually as a talk show host, I'm not speechless, but on this morning, it's one of those days that I am because I can't believe I'm saying this, but a 16 seed has finally defeated a 1, and that's the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. They have defeated Virginia. It is the final, and it wasn't even close, 74-54. So let's head out to the hotline and welcome in an NCAA college hoops coach, and that's Phil Martelli of the St. Joe's Hawks. Coach, I appreciate the time. This is really something.
It was stunning, and I was headed home from the center of the state of Pennsylvania and watched a doubleheader, high school doubleheader, and turned on the radio, and they started talking about it, and I thought, now something doesn't make sense, and the score just climbed, and I got in my house and saw the last 15 minutes, and it's just hard for me to explain, but I thought the same thing with the Buffalo, Arizona. The speed factor was astounding. The speed factor for UMBC and the speed factor for Buffalo, just absolutely extraordinary. And speechless is the right thing. And Zach, I do have a question for you because you have a hotline to the NCAA. Can I get in trouble if I now tell people that one of our secret scrimmages that nobody's ever supposed to know took place was against UMBC?
Was it really this year?
October. Yeah, we scrimmaged UMBC.
Oh, my.
In October.
What stood out to you about them at that time, and also their coach, and Ryan Odom?
Well, he's so calm. I don't know if you had a chance to see his post game. He's just a respectful, honorable guy, and the size of their guards. They were. I remember them being tiny and kind of spreading out. And at that point in the year, your offense isn't as sharp probably as your defense. But I do remember their speed and them really playing through those guards, who are exceptional.
I'll tell you, you see last night or the other night where Buffalo takes down Arizona 89-68, and then tonight UMBC takes down Virginia 74-54. It's just these games. It's not as if they lost on a buzzer beater, one of these top seeds.
Right.
Whether it was a 4, number 1 overall, they're running them out of the gym. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think there's a flip side. We absolutely should celebrate what UMBC and Buffalo and Loyola Chicago. We absolutely have to celebrate because this tournament could be dominated, but for those monumental upsets, it would be dominated with the FBI and the scandal and things like that. So these teams have brought a breath of fresh air. To me, obviously, some of it's provincial, being from Philadelphia, but it makes what Villanova did with Radford and shooting, at times in that game, high 70%. They're cut from a different cloth, Villanova, and I don't know how this will play out. It's like looking at a bracket now and saying, well, there's a landmine, and there's a landmine, and there's a landmine, and you have to catch your breath and say, what are these matchups that we're going to see this weekend? But I think the Villanova performance, because Penn with Kansas, they gave them a run, and you had the unfortunate injury at Purdue. So this is whoever coined the phrase March Madness, I hope they're sitting on their own island somewhere in the Dominican Republic and enjoying what they've created.
Head coach of the St. Joe's Hawks, Phil Martelli, is my guest right now on the Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. I remember a few years ago, Syracuse got a run for their money up against UNC Asheville. That was a 16-1 game. Did you ever think this day, though, was going to happen where we would see a 16 prevail over a number 1 seed?
No. I just didn't believe it. I think it's more likely to happen, Zach, to be honest with you, in that non-conference portion of the schedule because you don't have everybody's attention. We saw some major upsets in November this year. But when you get to this point, cream rises, and those teams have number one rankings and number one rankings all year long because they're extraordinary teams. And I'll even go a step further and say I'm a member of the NABC board. We're going to vote on Coach of the Year awards on Monday. I'm nominating Tony Bennett because and now he's not going to win the award because everyone's going to be like, Phil, you're crazy. But they and Villanova, to me, have had the year that from day one till today, they've played the same and they've approached it the same. And this result is just stunning.
Some of the games that we've seen, Loyola Chicago takes down Miami. Marshall today gets the victory, a 13 beating of 4. And then tonight, just the one that is going to be talked about for years and years to come, 16 UMBC taking down a 1. I look at the confidence of these players. There's one thing to be an underdog, but the confidence lasts from the minute that ball is tipped until the final whistle is blown and you're seeing these lopsided results. Can you teach that confidence? Because when you have an NCAA tournament game, you hear all the outside noise. A team like Loyola Chicago, Marshall, and UMBC, maybe it gets to a younger kid where they say, no one's given us a chance. So is that something you could teach with having these kids, with how confident they look?
I will be honest with you. I'm going to spend time studying and reading every article that talks about how these teams prep because I don't believe that you can just, Newt Rockne your way to this. I don't believe that you can sell pitch a saying or put a video on your scout tape that makes them believe, you know what, maybe we are Rocky Balboa. But you make an unbelievable point because at no point in these upset games has the lower seeded team or the higher seeded team, I'm not exactly sure how you would refer to them, I guess it would be the higher seeded team, have they looked bewildered, if they've looked concerned or they looked caught in the moment. And yet the lower seeded teams have at times looked caught in the moment. I thought that the Arizona blank stares last night were stunning, and the Virginia, some overreaction to calls and how much of the Virginia situation is DeAndre Hunter. But if you're the number one team in the country, it's not next man up, but it's a good player stepping up to replace DeAndre.
Yeah, but even with DeAndre Hunter, if you would have told me this would have been a game for the first half or even 5 minutes into the second half, I would have said eventually Virginia would have figured it out, and they just weren't able to do it tonight because UMBC just did not miss.
No, it's and I think that I'm going to study these upsets because I'm going to think that one of the places that you're going to see a big disparity is number of threes made for the underdog as opposed to the favored team. And when that happens, if it's 11-5 and you have an 18-point difference, that's a lot to make up. And let's also respect the referees because they haven't gotten overly involved thinking, wow, what role am I playing in what is now the biggest upset in the history of the tournament?
Since you got a chance to see them earlier in the year, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which did beat a 16 seed beating a 1 tonight. If I would have told you, I'm not going to say I would have told you 16 would have beat a 1, but if I would have told you they would have even just won an NCAA tournament game at the time when you get to play them, what would you have told me then, Coach?
Or Zach, even let's go back to last weekend. Let's remember.
Right?
They won at Vermont.
Yes.
Nobody wins at Vermont. Nobody wins at Vermont. I can't even. I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to go to my office over this weekend. I'm going to I'm going to find the DVD of that scrimmage and see what I missed.
It's going to be part of the next 30 for 30. I'll tell you that, Coach. You could be interviewed. Another one. I saw you in the Calipari one. You'll be in this one, too.
That's unbelievable.
Talking to Phil Martelli right now on CBS Sports Radio. All right, let's look at the rest of the bracket. A team that you know very well and you did beat this year, Rhode Island. They get Duke coming up later. Give me a little bit of a thought on that matchup, URI and Duke.
Well, Rhode Island is so old. Like yesterday's the big bucket in overtime is E.C. Matthews. And, if that's a young player, that's a bad shot. But he's an older guy. He's earned the right to take that shot. He made a big shot. I've seen Duke like everybody else, because they're on television every other day. The size and those young guys at Duke aren't really young guys. When you go through, Mike Krzyzewski's program, you get old in a hurry and grizzled, and the ACC wars have certainly helped them. I'm just fearful for Rhode Island with the size of Duke. But Duke is playing a lot of zone, and we could be in the same situation. We beat Rhode Island at Rhode Island. They made 3 threes. We lost to Rhode Island last Saturday in the semifinals of the Atlantic 10, and they made 13 threes. So I hope that the 3-ball is going, and I hope that the whole country recognizes, the power of our whole league by the performance of our top team in Rhode Island.
And then Nova and Alabama, you obviously know Jay Wright very well. What he's been doing at Villanova is just tremendous to see that success over the last few years. Villanova, I think, is going to be going to the Final Four, and it's my pick to win it all. But give me a little bit of a thought of Jay Wright and Avery Johnson going up against one of another.
Well, one of the things that Alabama's very young. Sexton, I believe they start 2 other freshmen with him, but they're really up against a juggernaut. And the greatest compliment that I can pay this Villanova team is the player of the year, the rightful player of the year in the country is Jalen Brunson. But he's not the best player on his team.
You're so right. It's Bridges.
Right. Bridges is the best player. Phil Booth might be the most indispensable. Dante DiVincenzo might be the most versatile. They don't get hung up about size. I think that I would have said to you going into this tournament, the 2 teams that play every possession exactly the same way are Virginia and Villanova. Villanova's shooting percentage, Zach, I would say this is a really big deal for people to check. Check out their 2-point percentage. Forget their 3-point percentage. But I think over the last 5 or 6 years, they've been 1, and maybe Gonzaga's been 2, or it could be flipped, in 2-point percentages. Every shot they take has a chance of going in, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the younger players at Alabama.
Phil Martelli with us on CBS Sports Radio. Coach, before we let you run, I was at the Palestra on Monday, and you guys do an unbelievable job, you and the City Six coaches. And for those nationally listening that does not know what the City Six is, it's Temple, Villanova, Penn, LaSalle, St. Joe's, and also Drexel. And every year after Selection Sunday, all 6 of those coaches, Jay Wright, Zach Spiker, Fran Dunphy, Steve Donahue, Dr. John Giannini, and also my guest, Phil Martelli, they do an unbelievable breakfast. And they actually honored a friend of mine, and Steve Chapman, who's a legendary high school coach. Before we let you run, Coach, though, tell us a little bit about the Coaches vs. Cancer breakfast that you do and your goal to try to crush cancer.
Well, we have a remarkable camaraderie in Philadelphia. We have a number of sponsors. We run a number of events, and 7 of the last 8 years, we've been the leading fundraisers for Coaches vs. Cancer, in excess of $1 million. So that Monday morning, we raised $100,000. We get in and talk a little basketball and make up stories about who we think's going to win. And but the heroes, Zach, were the people sitting at all those tables, because they went in their pocket and they support us. And we have 550 people, and that started maybe 17, 18 years ago, and we had 40 people. So what we've done is our part. The coaches get a lot of attention. But to me, it's the heroes are the people sitting in that room, and the people with courage are the people that have looked at this disease and said, "No, it's not my time. You're not getting me." And we're going to do everything we can. We're going to do everything that we can. It may not be in our lifetime, but in our children's lifetime, grandchildren's lifetime. It's not good enough to beat cancer. We're going to crush it. And we're not a 16 trying to beat a 1. It's a lot closer than that. And cancer needs to know we're coming for them every single day.
Well, Coach, keep up the great work along with the other City 6 coaches. Phil Martelli, my guest on CBS Sports Radio. Thank you so much. And I'm telling you, a lot of teams around the country are going to want to scrimmage you now, Coach.
You got it, Zach.